The 7900 XTX versus Outer Worlds 2. Hey, I'm Mr. MCP76 and today we're going to play Outer Worlds 2 at 4K with very high settings, ray tracing enabled, and with FSR4. Can the 7900 XTX handle this brand new game from Unreal Engine 5? We've seen in the past that Unreal Engine 5 has not been kind to really any GPU, to be honest. This game is also a very CPU heavy, so we're running the i7-13700KF and we'll see how that one holds up as well. All right, we are running at 3840 by 2160p, so we're running at 4K here. No VSync, upscaling right now. AMD Fidelity FX is enabled with native only, so we're running FSR4 native AA. The 7900 XTX doesn't actually support FSR4 natively yet. Come on, AMD, get with it. Let's get this going. But so what we're doing actually is we've taken the DLL, the Int8 DLL file that was leaked recently, and we've gone ahead and replaced the FSR4 or Fidelity FX DLL file that was in this game with the Int8 version of that DLL file. So now we're running FSR4 on an RDNA 3 card, so 7900 XTX in this game. So we'll see how it performs here. We've got ray tracing on, so hardware ray tracing is on, and all settings are maxed out. Okay, we're back in the game here. Let's go ahead and start our frame time counter. So it's not looking promising for FSR4 native with ray tracing. The 7900 XTX is giving us about 24 FPS right now. The GPU is maxed out at 100%. CPU, the i7-13700KF is sitting about 15-16% utilized. Some of those cores are in the high 20s, but nothing too bad. So let's go ahead and make our run here and see how things look. Again, this is an Unreal Engine 5 game, and so it has not. Unreal Engine 5 has not had the best reputation. Right? It's been Borderlands 4 is the best and most recent example of a case where it wasn't very optimized. And to be honest, this is kind of giving me Borderlands 4 flashbacks, right? We're in the 20s. I think that's about where we sat with Borderlands 4. I've got a video on that, a number of videos on that, so if you want to check them out, feel free. But I was not seeing much better performance. It's almost identical to the way Borderlands 4 was running. So Unreal Engine 5 here again delivering very similar performance as we saw with the other game. Just gonna go through some areas, see what our FPS gives us. This area here is kind of like the first. This is. I didn't want to show everybody the initial gameplay of the game. I didn't want to give anything away. So this is kind of like what happens after. Oh yeah, Unreal Engine 5 stutters. Yay! Never gets old. But anyway, this is like the first planet you land on, exterior, and so it'll be a pretty good load on the GPU. Right now, again, no upscaling, so it does look fine. I'm not showing any strange artifacts with the grass or any of the structures. Everything is looking pretty good here. We'll come to the end of our run now.
Friend in the next unit said cars got everybody out at the forward operating base sitting on their hands.
The game actually looks very good. I mean, I'm really impressed. It is a good looking game, and Outer Worlds is a game that, another stutter, wow. Outer Worlds is a game that I've always loved. It's developed by Obsidian, which is the same makers or the creators of Fallout New Vegas, as well as, of course, the original Outer Worlds, and all those games were great. So I'm enjoying the game, but I'm not enjoying the performance here. The performance, so right now we've got an average of 23 FPS there through our run, and our 1% lows is not 1 FPS. That's due to stutters. So it might as well be 1% or 1 FPS, right? Anyway, so there you have it. That was our native 4K run with FSR4 set to AA only. All right, let's see if we can get some help from upscaling and can we increase our FPS. Let's give it a try. All right, so we're here in the settings, and again, we're using FSR4, and we'll go ahead now and adjust from native to quality to give us a little bit of a boost in performance, and we'll see if this will get us at least to 30 FPS, I would expect. All right, we are seeing over 30, so about 37 FPS right now. GPU utilization is still at 100%. And then CPU utilization has bumped up now to 22% or so. We're looking at the cores, some of them sitting in the 30 to 40% utilization. So it's definitely hitting a little bit harder, which is to be expected. Upscaling not only is rendering at a lower resolution,
I hear the
allowing the
next unit
GPU to
said cars
produce more
got
frames,
everybody out at the forward
but
operating base sitting on their hands.
it's also the upscaling algorithm itself is a bit of a load on the CPU. Not sure, this grass looks a little different. From back here, it looked like
I
it was
hear the next unit
shimmering.
said cars got everybody out at the forward operating base sitting on their hands.
Yeah, see over here, it looks like it's moving. So, but when we get close to it, it stops moving? No, it's still moving? All right. Okay, so no shimmer, just bouncing flowers. All right, let's go through our run here. Again, this is now FSR4 quality, very high settings, and ray tracing is turned on. So right now, the game colors look great and everything pops. Shadows are great. FPS is holding at about 36 FPS, actively getting about 38, 35 to 38 FPS right now. So a little bit of a boost, about 10 FPS boost over native 4K with no upscaling. Ray tracing really adds a lot here in these dynamic shadows, how the rock faces look. You can see how the shadows kind of add a 3D texture to it. Let's move through the tall grass. Yeah, FPS is holding real steady. It's not having a it's not having money it's not having a lot of fluctuations here, and it looks like the stutters are gone now too, as we have loaded the shaders for this particular scene. But Unreal Engine 5, right? That's what we get. Maybe one day they'll figure out how to have that not happen. Every time you load the game, there is a shader compilation that happens, so you would think you'd be free of them, but you're not. Water looks great. I'm not showing anything that stood out to me that would have been artifacts, shimmering, flickering, anything like that. So FSR4 quality here held up real well, and we got about 36 FPS average, 30 FPS for the 1% lows. So that's actually not too bad of a bump. Actively here by the water side, we're in the 40s because there's not a lot of NPCs around and things like that, so it's easier to render. But overall, 36 FPS. All right, so let's go ahead and adjust to the next upscaling level and see how that works. So we're going to go from quality now to balanced, and we'll see if we get any closer to 60. Okay, we're back in the game here. So again, looking at the water, we're getting about 44 FPS now, 42 actively, but about 44 average at the moment with FSR4 balanced. So we are upscaling to 4K here at very high settings and with ray tracing on. And it's looking great, but let's go ahead and move through the town so that we can see what kind of performance loss we get there. The game really is a demanding game. This thing is hard to run for the system. But the 7900 XTX with ray tracing on, I mean, it's giving, it's, it's trying 99% utilized for the GPU, 30% utilized for the CPU. So again, this is a very demanding game, not just for the GPU, but also for the CPU. We've got an i7-13700KF, which has 8 performance cores, so 16 threads. But not only are the performance cores being hit, I can see that the efficiency cores are also being utilized quite heavily. Just taking a look at the wires. It's power lines or phone lines, whatever they are. No shimmering there. Everything looking great. It's an extremely well implemented game. I mean, even if it's not with performance, at least with the look of the game and the stability of it looks really good too. So I don't think we're going to be hitting 100 plus FPS in this game, guys. We're going to be lucky if we can get to 60, right? If I can just get to 60, that would be good. All right, so that should be our run there, and we got about 41 FPS average. So yeah, about almost 10 FPS more than we got with FSR4 quality. So this was FSR4 balanced, 4K, upscaling to 4K, and very high settings with ray tracing. So let's go ahead and bump up to the next setting. All right, so again, that was balanced. Now we're going to take it to performance. Technically, performance is going to give us about 1080p, upscaling to 4K again. We are going to keep it at a very high and ray tracing on as well. I mean, this is AMD's top. I mean, this is AMD's top GPU, or at least it was its flagship GPU about 3 years ago or so. Let's go ahead and start our counter actually. All right, so FSR4 performance. Not very much of a boost yet. I think going through the town it's only going to go lower, but right now we're sitting at about 47 FPS. GPU utilization 99%, CPU utilization 30. Not much here, 46. Let's do our run and see how that gets affected. I think at this point, we didn't see we're actually seeing probably more of a FPS loss. I think at this point what we're witnessing here is a CPU bottleneck. Contrary to popular belief, um, you don't have to have your CPU be at 100% to be maxed out. It's enough to just have your CPU at 30, 40%, maybe even 50%, probably pushing it to 50%. That could be considered maxed out, as that's about the best that your CPU's IPC, so instructions per clock, maybe that's the best it can give, right? So if this is a very calculation heavy game, the CPU doesn't need to be at 100%. It's just not fast enough, right? So not even that it's 100% loaded, it's just not fast enough. So at this point, the i7 13700K KF might not be fast enough to give us higher FPS here with FSR4 performance. That's a shame. I mean, it looks great, and it's smooth gameplay. And in this less populated area, we're in the 50s. CPU is definitely like it's just pretty much just stuck there at about 30% utilized. So it's definitely a good-looking game, and even at sub, below 60 FPS, the game is actually pretty smooth. It's running very smooth right now. It's very fluid. Unlike when it was in the 20s, where it certainly wasn't very fluid, feeling very jittery due to the low FPS. And now we're seeing it's feeling smoother now with a keyboard and mouse. Not seeing any issues with the grass. Again, this is at performance, so we're going up from 1080p to 4K. And FSR4 upscaling is staying true to its word of being the king of upscaling when it comes to AMD right now. FSR4 looking great here in the upscaling. I wonder if that's why Obsidian decided not to support FSR3. They didn't want to take the risk of all this beautiful, lovely grass that's purple for some reason, not looking just gorgeous, right? So, but FSR4 is doing really well here, if not for FPS performance, at least for quality, the quality of the graphics. All right, we'll come back here to finish our run. Again, not seeing, there's a lot of wires here, and I'm not seeing any kind of big issue. I mean, there's a little bit of anti-aliasing issue there. Aliasing issue there with that wire running horizontally across, but that happens. It's not shimmering, it's not flickering, it's not distracting to the eye. And ray trace, that's the other thing. We do have ray tracing enabled here, so that's going to give us quite of a performance loss. The 7900 XTX does not have the most up-to-date performance cores for ray tracing. So, if you got a 9000 series GPU, you're probably going to see a much better performance with ray tracing than I am. That's just due to sheer brute force. Got more of them. They're using newer technology, so they're just more efficient. And the 7900 XTX is getting quite old in the tooth when it comes to that. So let's go ahead and actually see what happens if we turn ray tracing off. How does that affect the game visually, and also does it give us a big enough boost to make it worthwhile? So let's go ahead and test that one last change. Okay, we've gone ahead and turned off ray tracing here, hardware ray tracing, keeping it at FSR4 performance, and we're keeping everything at high. So let's go back in the game and see how things are going. All right, we're back in the game here. So originally we were in the 40s when we ended this run here. And now, just looking out at the ocean, we're in the 60s, so that's 60 FPS at FSR4 performance. So upscaling from 1080p to 4K, and I can tell that some sunlight has been. I mean, it still looks good. I think. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but I believe without hardware ray tracing, it's using software ray tracing. So it's using Unreal Engine 5's Lumen to handle the lighting effects without ray tracing. And if that's the case, it is doing a really good job. And right now we are running right at 60 FPS. So let's go back and do our run one more time here and see if it's worth keeping ray tracing off. I mean, I can't really see too much of a difference yet without ray tracing. Lumina is nothing to sneeze at. It's software based, and I do believe they have hardware based as well, but it isn't as heavy and demanding of a uh, light effects algorithm than ray tracing. Ray tracing is really hard to run. Again, we're holding pretty good here, just below 60 FPS. GPU is about 98, 99, 100 FPS, or 100% utilization. CPU is at still about 30, 28% to 30% utilized. The i7-13700KF still struggling to keep the game fed. Let's go around this way so we can get some more look. So I think, this lighting, the game feels extremely fluid now at just right at 60. We're actually effectively at 60, actively at 60. Um, the lighting here is a little different, but it is not bad. Things like, so as an example, without ray tracing, this grass here, or moss, whatever it is on this rock face, it all looks like it's got the same shadow effect. There doesn't seem to be too much variation in it, even though when you look at it, your eye tells you that there should be variations in the way the shadows are laid out here, not just from the sun, but in the shadow from this building, but from the sun that's still coming in, and that's just not happening here with Lumen. It's not bad, it still looks great, and if you didn't know any better, you'd be happy with it, but still got pretty good reflections in the water too. But without it, once you've compared it, you can kind of notice it. It does feel different. The shadows feel different. Again, still no issues with those power lines. Even in the distance, I don't see anything shimmering. The image probably with performance, FSR4 performance here isn't as sharp, but it still looks great. So the 7900 XTX giving us just below 60 FPS. I still suspect, even without ray tracing, I think originally we were into the 40s. Now we're in just below 60. So ray tracing was taking about a 10 FPS hit on us in these runs. And now without ray tracing, we're averaging 57 FPS in this run, 47 FPS for the 1% low with FSR4 performance, no ray tracing, very high settings. So there's the effect of ray tracing, about 10 FPS loss. With our previous run, we saw about 47 FPS average. So there you guys have it. Our look at Outer Worlds 2. It is a very demanding game, if not so much for the GPU, most certainly for the CPU. So keep an eye on that because that seems to be the biggest effect or primary effect on how much FPS you'll get. So thanks for joining me. I'm Mr. MCP76. If you guys like this content, don't forget to subscribe so you can see the next video. Thanks for joining me.